right now, 80% of product searches begin on Amazon.com. If Google and Microsoft are able to use large language models to create a better product search experience before Amazon, then their dominance in product search and product sales is at risk. Welcome to the Day 2 podcast. Today's episode, seller news from Avenue 7 Slack channel and beyond. Amazon really likes to launch stuff in April and October, and at this point in early June, we're starting to get a sense of some of the things Amazon is testing. From messing with additional images to showing estimated units sold for every listing, Amazon has been busy. In fact, and in the time from last week to this week, there are 5 more stories on Amazon. We're not going to get to all of them today, but we're going to update our listeners and our viewers on the Amazon news that's fresh and top of mind. I'm Jason Boyce, founder and CEO of Avenue 7 Media and host of the Day 2 podcast. With me today is my partner in crime, Shannon Roddy, Amazon strategist, educator, business development lead for Av7. Shannon, is your head spinning? Keeping up with all these news stories?
Yeah, but it's good spinning. There's a lot of exciting updates that I think are actually going to impact sellers, Jason. And one of the things that kind of annoys me as a pet peeve is when people make a bunch of hullabaloo about nothing. And, you know, it's some minor feature that gets released that only 2 people have access to and it never really impacts your sales. I think a lot of the things that we're going to cover today will have long-term impact for brands and sellers. So I'm excited. I think we should dive right in.
Let's dive right in. Number 1, Shannon. Amazon is now showing in beta the estimated units sold in the search results page for products as well as the details page. Like before this episode, last week and this week, Shannon, I did a quick search. I can't find these, but you've been seeing them. What are you seeing?
They're primarily showing up in the mobile app. So if you have the mobile app on your iOS or Android device, that's where I'm seeing it the most. I saw it appear on desktop and then disappear from desktop. But what it's doing is Amazon is saying underneath the product, it's saying number of units bought in the last month. They're not giving you the exact number, but it starts with 50 plus bought in the last month. And then it goes to 100. So 300 or 700 plus bought in the last month, and then 1,000. So you kind of getting from that, you're not getting actual sales estimates, but the range could be anywhere from 50 to 100 to 1,000. And it's kind of interesting. I did a search and I looked at some of our clients' products, and on Amazon, it said 1,000 plus bought in the last month. Jungle Scout estimated 1,525, and the actual number was 1,335. So again, it shows a little bit of the accuracy of Jungle Scout and Helium 10 and some of the tools that a lot of brands and sellers use. Another thing that's more interesting is when you have variations, Amazon is actually showing it on the child variation. And so I looked at a variation that had 3 separate products and it said, 200 plus of this one, 100 plus of this, the second item, and 50 plus of the third one, which is 350 plus. But again, there's margins within each of those up to the next 50 or next 100. The actual number was 615. Jungle Scout had estimated 575 as an aggregate, because when Amazon sort of moved how they did a BSR from child ASINs to parent ASINs, it sort of screwed up the algorithm. So it is interesting. I don't think it will take away from the sales estimate tools that brands and sellers and agencies use to look at competitor sales and see what's out there and see the opportunity, but it will help validate some of those. And my guess is, Jason, they're looking at it to see how does it impact a customer purchase intent by showing them this many people have bought this in the last 30 days. It sort of gives that customer confidence. Amazon's testing it. If it drastically increases conversion, I think they're going to keep rolling it out. So that's my take on it.
Oh, that's great stuff, Shannon. And, maybe you could keep an eye on this and let us know. We can bring it back in a future episode. But there are certain subcategories where Jungle Scout Orange and Helium 10 X-ray cannot capture data for whatever reason. I think it's the way that the nodes were created. Like electronics is one that's very hard to get really solid estimates. So I'm curious, if that's not available in Jungle Scout Orange or Helium 10 X-ray, then at least you have something that you can look at, and you can take those estimated units sold, multiply it by the average retail price, and get a really good estimate. look, it may not be within 1% accuracy, but even 10% accuracy gives you a really good idea of what's going on with that product in a given category. Great one. Great one. Let's move on to the next one.
Next up, Amazon. We know that Amazon started hiring for jobs for AI. This was posted a few months ago on LinkedIn. So we saw those job postings, which kind of clues you into what they're doing. They are now summarizing reviews with AI. And Joe from Marketplace Pulse said Amazon has abandoned the customer experience innovation and replaced it with ads, and developments, generative AI are forcing them to change their thinking. Talk a little bit about what Amazon's doing with AI at this point in time, and where you think that's going to go over the next 6 months to a year.
AI is very interesting. There's this old school AI and new school AI. New school, of course, being the ChatGPT, the generative AI, or these large language models, as they call them. And that element, which I would, for the sake of this conversation, I would call new school, really has taken up the headlines and sucked the air out of all other stories. But I think it's unfair for folks to say that Amazon hasn't been doing AI. I mean, they've been using AI forever. It just doesn't happen to be these large language models. For example, their entire fulfillment network, their whole warehousing operations, they spent countless time, treasure, and resources and labor to develop these machine learning systems or these rule-based systems to decode how warehouse operations happen and how they could become more efficient. So Amazon is very much an AI player. They may not be a ChatGPT LLM player yet, and maybe they've got some catching up to do. But I think firstly, it's unfair. Second, I don't think if it wasn't for all the news with ChatGPT coming out and bursting onto the scene like it did, we see an article that Amazon says they're using AI to do review sentiment analysis. They would just say, Amazon's now summarizing reviews, right? But they have to do something. Their PR team is hard at work to say, wait a minute, we are doing AI. We need to just tell people about it so that they know that we're in this game. We had been thinking about this review sentiment analysis idea for more than a decade. I've been thinking about it all the way back to when I was a big seller, because it's really helpful for product iteration to know what those summaries are. And, we employed a large headcount in the Philippines in order to capture that and summarize that data for us. Now, it's really cool. I mean, both on the consumer side and for the seller's perspective, you can now see what people like most about your product and what they like least about your product. So then on the lease side, you can go and iterate on your product the next time you cut your PO with your factory. And then on the positive side, it can really give you some ideas to upscale your listings and to really call out the true benefits of the product. So I love that this is happening. I agree with 99.999% of what our Marketplace Joe says. And this is one of them. Amazon really has just become a pay model, and they haven't really been innovating, but they've got to start talking more about the AI that they are employing.
Yeah, no, I agree. They've been using AI to write book descriptions for years. I mean, that's nothing new. They tested it with humans and the AI, and they said, look, the AI ones work better and it's cheaper. So I don't think that's new. The concept of iterative search is interesting to me, because I believe, my guess is the way that, the Amazon algorithm works now is if I type in something, don't quite find what I like, but then change it a little bit, Amazon's essentially starting a new search. I think with, Bloomberg reported that they're going to be adding Chat GPT-like search to its store. It really is like adding a refining prompt to what you're talking about. And it takes the previous thing that you said in context and then further dials it down into the specific niche of a product that you're looking for. So I think it's interesting. I think it's fascinating. And I think it's on the right track. So
you're right, Shannon. And what you just said reminded me of another thing. This is a real risk for them. Right now, 70-80% of product searches begin on Amazon.com. If Google and Microsoft are able to use large language models to create a better product search experience before Amazon, then their dominance in product search and product sales is at risk. So this is one area. I have no doubt that they have been working on this and are working on it behind the scenes. But if Google or Microsoft beats them to the punch in any kind of significant way, it puts them at risk. Now, look, Microsoft and Google, in terms of product search, they still don't have the fulfillment network, which is that third leg of Amazon dominance. So It's not a huge risk, but it's definitely a risk factor that they must address and they must move fast. All right, so next item. Lots of news, Shannon, lots of news. Small business brand names are disappearing from titles and categories lately. The bigger the brands, they have the brand name in the front of the title. Smaller brands, and I don't even know what the algorithm is that Amazon uses with AI to determine who's a small brand. My guess is it's a revenue number or quantity sold number, but they're eliminating the brand name in the listing. Shannon, is this good or bad?
It's interesting because typically private label and smaller brands would try to remove their own brand name from the titles because they wanted their most heavily searched keywords closer to the front. And so from an algorithm standpoint, it benefits you. However, as we always encourage all of our clients, it's all about building a brand and defending a brand. And if Amazon is removing your brand, even in search results, you're missing out on the brand building opportunity. So when I was, running marketplace seller courses and I would coach clients, they say, oh, I want to remove my brand from the title. It's like, why in the world would you want to do that? So I think that depending on how it impacts search and algorithm, if it's giving more weight to those primary keywords, that's great. But to remove a brand name and make it a commoditized marketplace, I think is de-incentivized for not only Amazon, but the customers. We have just seen over and over the gobbledygook, brand names that are unpronounceable taking over the Amazon marketplace. And I think if Amazon continues to go along that model, it's going to be detrimental to the entire concept of brand building, which is really, I think, the backbone of what makes a great company. It's not a commoditized product, it is the brand.
I agree with you, Shannon. This is a really misguided approach. Amazon has this amazing story about how the next billion-dollar brands are being born on their platform every day, right? And it's an opportunity to build a brand, to build trust. You can build followers with your brand. You can build a great brand store if you have trademark and brand registry. And to have that eliminated from the search is a very bad seller experience. Furthermore, I think it's a bad consumer experience because let's say I go and I buy a brand and I like it. It may not be the biggest brand, but I really like the value proposition. I love their products and I'm following their brand. And, I want to search for their brand name plus keyword. And then I see a full page of search results without any brand names. That makes it really frustrating for me to find the brand that I want to buy. So I think this is a lose-lose situation. I think it's a terrible idea. Whichever MBA student came up with it, shame on you. Stop doing this immediately, kill the beta, and there's no good that can come from this.
Fair enough. All right. Well, there's no shortage of stories. So I want to jump to Seller Fulfilled Prime. Well, actually, Jason, do you want to talk a little bit about the small business badge? Because that was a little bit of something that you had a little bit of a rant on. And it's not quite, related to the small business brand names, but the small business badge, and we're seeing billion-dollar brands getting the small business badge, which was intended to elevate those small brands. Amazon not necessarily regulating that as well as they could. I want to give you a quick second to comment on that before we go to our next one.
This is just another example of a program that somebody launched and no one's minding the store anymore. I don't think there's any nefarious intent behind what Amazon is doing here, but seriously, come on. You cannot claim to be small business partners. You cannot claim to be the launchpad for the next billion-dollar brand if you don't protect these guys and you don't make sure that a small business badge is a representative of a small business. There are real consumers out there that are moving the needle that will only support small businesses. And if you're not minding the store and vetting that process, come on, do better, Amazon. And I could just keep going, Shannon, but I'll stop there. This is just another example. We got more missing cover. They're missing it. They're missing the boat. Go ahead.
We got more news to cover. All right. Seller Fulfilled Prime has literally been on hold for years. I've had clients that were waiting, and every time they went, Amazon would say, we're not accepting applications right now. And, or we've received your application and, we'll get around to it when we feel like it. But it was basically turned off. And in sort of a landmark decision, Amazon announced through Seller Central that they were going to begin to open up that application in the next few months. And that's very exciting for many sellers. I think people are concerned that the requirements are going to be even higher so that even if people can apply, it doesn't mean that more people are going to be eligible to join. But I think you also had some background and insight on this as well in terms of the timing of when Amazon introduced this and what the implications are.
You know, Shannon, when you said seller fulfilled Prime, I started to have PTSD, started sweating, my anxiety level went up, thinking about how hard it was to meet that high bar of seller fulfilled Prime back when I was a seller, you know, shipping goods from 3 major warehouses across the country. And then it wasn't enough to wait until it got out the door. We had to bird dog that thing to make sure that FedEx processed the order when they got to their depot. If they waited a day, we were outside of the window, and it was a constant pressure, you know, 24/7, 365. And I'm so happy that I don't have to do it anymore. But here's my thoughts on this, okay? Amazon and the EU made this big antitrust settlement. And Amazon agreed as part of this big settlement to allow others to offer the Prime badge. That was a big piece or linchpin of their case against Amazon. They were saying you're giving beneficial treatment and forcing people to use your fulfillment network. You've got to open it up. I think Amazon said, why not, right? Why not? We have to do it in Europe anyway. Let's just simplify our platform. Let's also open it up in the United States because, by the way, Bill S-2992 is back on the Senate floor again. The Amy Klobuchar, Senator Grassley bill is now working its way through the Senate. And I got to tell you, I know this is the third time I've said this, I think it's got a chance of passing now. And so I think Amazon, instead of laying in front of the parade that's coming and getting trampled, they're getting out in front and trying to lead it and saying, hey, we're now offering Prime. Anybody can do Prime. They just have to meet this very high bar. But here's the thing, Shannon, and here's what I caution Senator Klobuchar and Senator Grassley. What they need to do is to make sure that Amazon must hold themselves to the same standard that sellers that they hold sellers to when it comes to this SFP program. Because I'm telling you right now, there's no way in hell, if Amazon holds itself to the same standards in terms of SFP with the SFP sellers that they're going to launch, they would not get the Prime badge. They would lose their ability to do SFP. So it's got to be a level playing field. They can't expect more out of the sellers than they expect out of themselves. And right now, I think that's a glaring gap in the bill, and it needs to be fixed.
That's a really good point, Jason. I hadn't thought about that before, but can you imagine Amazon, who invented Amazon Prime and FBA fulfillment, losing the own Prime badge on their own website for their own fulfillment because they weren't able to maintain the metrics? And it happens. Amazon misses delivery deadlines, and they don't fine themselves. They don't credit you as the seller for getting it there late. But if you miss it with merchant fulfillment or SFP, you know, you're on the chopping block. So, I mean, again, I think it's valuable. I'm excited that's being reintroduced. There are so many sellers who make custom products, who have cold ship products, who have frozen products, you know, things that you can't, or even meltable products that you can't always store in an FBA warehouse, that it makes a lot of sense for. And opening that back up is really huge because the Prime badge does increase search rank and conversion rate. At the same time, it's interesting to think about what happens if, like I said, you have all those different metrics, and as long as the sellers are able to meet them, it allows them an escape route from those ever increasing FBA fees that have just increased year over year over year. You know, look, Jason, back in the day, and even today, there's still a lot of opportunity where you say, look, FBA is still cheaper. It's still cheaper, but there's some cases where it's not. And I think that puts Amazon now in market competition with a seller's ability to fulfill directly to the customer.
And, you know, it's a big boom for companies, Dave Clark, like the company that Dave Clark now runs as CEO, Flexport. It's a great opportunity to open up the floodgates to more investment into final mile delivery and warehousing companies, right? Because if you can go after potentially half of the online market in the United States, that opens up the door to investment. There's one other piece that the senators need to be wary of. And we used to run this test in my previous life. We would have the FBA inventory listing, and then we would have the SFP listing. And you would think, Shannon, because they both had the Prime badge, that the SFP listing would get as much sales. But guess who got more sales all the time? FBA. Amazon still preferenced their own inventory and getting it out of their warehouse over the SFP. So they stack the deck in their favor. And if some legislation rules can be written to protect that and to truly open up the ability for everyone to offer Prime badge delivery services I think that's great for consumers. I think it's great for sellers. It gives them options. They're not only beholden to Amazon with this. And I think it allows other retailers, online retailers, to raise the bar and meet that Prime delivery promise off of Amazon as well. Okay, next one, Shannon. Look, you're one of our ad gurus here at Avenue 7. So I got to ask you this. This was very interesting to me. Posts have now officially moved to ad console. So first, quick description of what posts are and what do you think this means? Why would posts move into the ad console?
For listeners and brands and sellers who aren't aware, if you have an Amazon storefront, you can gain followers, which is fantastic. And the way you gain followers typically is driving traffic to your storefront and also doing posts. And posts is essentially Amazon's sort of beta foray into the social media realm, where you can do an organic post, you can put an image, you can put some hashtags, and you associate products with that post in order to generate organic traffic. Amazon has done a poor job of being able to attribute any sales to those posts, which is kind of a pretty big miss considering that they're an e-commerce platform. People want to know how much of an impact it makes. We know it's driving clicks to the listing. Our team does it for all of our clients, but it would be helpful to know what that data is. But the fact that Amazon now moved those posts into the ads console, I think pretty clearly makes a statement that we're going to be able to boost those posts pretty soon. And with that will come advertised attribution data. Like I said, there's always the desire to understand what is the organic attribution, but it's pretty clear that Amazon's moving that direction and saying, look, there's space on the platform. So let's allow people to advertise on it. And I think that just kind of goes back to some of the comments that I've seen on LinkedIn, which is, Amazon, can you please not create another sponsored placement on Amazon?
Because it's coming. We're
going to get to the point where you don't see anything but advertising. And at that point,
we're almost like there.
That at the beginning of Facebook, it's not cool anymore. If everything is advertising, it's just not cool anymore.
Yeah, and this is another one. We obviously do posts, original posts, that we repurpose Facebook posts for our clients. We like the external traffic. We like the inbound traffic, however small. And we keep hoping someday it's going to really drive additional sales. We also like building up those followers by doing posts. And then when our clients have a new launch product, we get some initial interest from people who are already connected to the brand. They're also beta testing this new thing, this Inspire it's called, where this little light bulb pops up on the app. I'm not a TikTok guy.
But shocking, Ethan. Shocking.
Is it shocking? Yeah, I'm not a TikTok guy for a lot of reasons, but it's a good idea. Well, it's something that Amazon is testing for highlighting products. It's much like posts. Again, we're not seeing a lot of love here. Have you seen anything or heard anything about this one, Shannon, where it's got you excited? Or again, is this another nothing burger?
I've heard of it. It kind of pops up again. I'm not excited unless we can attribute increased click-through or sales to it. You know,
that's the ad conversion guy in you. All right, thank you, Shannon.
Yeah,
all right.
I'd be able to make a difference.
You take the next one. This one drives me crazy, Shannon. This next one.
So you had talked to Annie Palmer, CNBC, about this. There is now an option to shop similar items in the infographics. I feel like it's, remember when Apple, I think it was U2 released a new album and they just forced it onto everybody's iPod, whether you wanted it or not. And it's like, it feels like it's a little intrusive, a little invasive. Like, this is my listing. This is my category. This is what sort of my real estate. And there's a little bit of infringement on that. But I'm really curious to hear what your thoughts are when Amazon starts to do this shop similar items feature in the infographics.
Oh, this drives me absolutely insane, Shannon. Whichever MBA new hire came up with this idea, quit your job. Stop doing what you're doing. This is the worst idea ever. From a seller's perspective, let me make this very clear to those at Amazon. When you're requiring those sellers to spend up to 10 to 30% of their revenue to drive traffic to their listing on the detail page, even if it's a branded keyword, which is another rant on its own, Shannon, but if you're requiring them to spend money to drive traffic to the details page, the very least you can do is give them an opportunity in the additional images, what we call infographics, to make their pitch, to get that shopper to convert to a sale, to take away an additional image and pop up stuff in a feed that's not even related to the detail page, to take them away from the detail page that I, the seller, just paid to get there, is really frustrating. I hate this idea. I hate this idea. I hate this idea. How's that? Is that clear, Shannon?
Tell us how you really feel, Jason.
Please stop immediately, Amazon. This is a dumb one. Kill it.
Now, this is the last one that I want to bring up. Amazon announced a landmark deal with Pinterest to make pins shoppable. So for a long time, there were certain social media platforms that played better with Amazon. You'd say, look, we're going to do a Facebook launch. We've got a big Facebook audience. Let's use Amazon's, available now on Amazon logo and drive that traffic to Amazon. Pinterest, not so much. There's certain ones, even TikTok can drive brand awareness, but it's hard to grab the links because, they don't make it easy. Same with Instagram. You can build the brand awareness, but you got to kind of go to the seller's profile and their bio and their link tree to kind of get the actual link to Amazon. So I think it's interesting to see that Pinterest of all companies would make that deal. And it could just be that they're feeling left out. But basically the goal is for brands who like to promote their products on Pinterest to be able to create shoppable images that would allow a customer or a viewer to click on that link and that ad and go directly to Amazon to purchase. What are your thoughts on this? Shoppable,
I can see
shoppable images.
Yeah. Look, I can see why this is a big win for Amazon because it gets them in front of a big customer base that is showing interest in a product, and it allows Amazon to get the sale, the FBA fee, etc. I'm scratching my head a little bit understanding why Pinterest would want to do this and why they wouldn't tap into their own marketplace abilities with this. But at the end of the day, I think it's a win. It's a little bit of an offshoot of the Andy Jassy era with Buy with Prime, right? Where Buy with Prime, you can add a Prime badge on a brand's.com and that order can be fulfilled from the Amazon fulfillment network. I mean, it just tells me that they're trying to really gain scale on the FBA capabilities, maybe because they saw what happened in Europe and they know that they're going to lose some of that business to SFP because the law is going to require them. They want to maintain enough volume through their fulfillment network where they continue to make money. I mean, I read this study and economists put together talking about the cost savings that come along from the fulfillment network with volume. And so if Amazon, due to SFP, loses 10, 15% of their volume, their cost per unit really goes up. But if they gain and maintain that current volume, and then they can increase it by expanding Buy with Prime, driving more sales from Pinterest that maybe they wouldn't have gotten otherwise, then their cost per unit can really go down. There's no question in my mind that FBA is a profit center for Amazon. They won't share that information. They may have dipped into the red during COVID, but this tells me that Andy Jassy is looking at these line items for FBA going, let's do more of this. Let's gain more scale, more volume so that we can keep our costs down so we can continue to make FBA money.
It's interesting because it's the goal of every social platform and really every platform to keep the user on the platform, right? And so even on LinkedIn, when we're posting on LinkedIn, typically if we have an external link, we do that in the comments. We don't do it in the post because we don't want LinkedIn saying, well, if I promote this post to all of your followers, they're going to click that link and leave LinkedIn. We don't want them to do that.
I think, and I'm too lazy to do another post on it.
But I think there's an element where when you look at, Facebook obviously makes it the easiest, I think. But when you look at TikTok, when you look at Instagram, YouTube, again, you can have sort of external links in the description, but they don't make it easy. And there's always sort of you have to do a couple clicks to click more kind of thing. And I just wonder at some point, because the social platform is the exposure and the emotional connection with the customer, but there's also the desire to purchase. If somebody's able to create that hack, for lack of a better term, where I can stay on the platform and purchase that product, or at least add it to my cart. Like, ooh, I like that. I'm scrolling through TikTok, which I never do, but I see a cool product and I could click add it to cart or purchase without having to leave the platform. It's really the best of both worlds. And I imagine if you look at Amazon getting the 15% referral fee, they go to Instagram and say, look, we'll give you 3%. We'll give you 2% if you allow us this integration. I think even James Kelly was kind of saying the same thing. Like, why not have some of these...
Same thing, Shannon. I was thinking the same
thing. Why
not
have some of these integrations? You're making it difficult for customers to find the product and to buy a product. And Amazon did a great job making it easy to buy the product. But with 2 billion products on the platform, what you lack is the ability to stand out amongst all the noise. And social media is the way to gain exposure and access to your audience.
You're so right, Shannon. I was going right back to that episode recently with James Kelly as well, where he said, I'm waiting for the buy with Prime badge to show up on my Instagram feed. I want my Instagram feed to be shoppable. But here's the interesting thing that's happening in the market right now, right? It ties into the SFP opening up again. If Flexport, and I have no doubt in my mind that Dave Clark's goal is to be a third-party FBA for every brand. If Flexport and Dave Clark and some of the others out there can become an FBA that's not necessarily connected to Amazon, an FBA for hire for all of these other social media platforms, could he come out and strike a deal like he did with Shopify? Can he do that with Facebook? Can he do that with Pinterest and some of the others, where they can then start to leverage and get a rip off of some of that sales? They don't have to worry about the fulfillment piece because everyone knows how hard that is. But I mean, Dave Clark did it for Amazon. He's doing it for Flexport.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting company that I'm keeping my eye on. Shannon, I got 2 more that we dropped in. I dropped them in literally today to add to our notes. This Amazon news cycle is just relentless. But first of its kind, Amazon sued by the FTC for, according to the FTC, allegedly duping shoppers into signing up for Prime. I kind of went, I saw that headline. I was just doing some headline scans on CNN before opening up in the office today. And I went, huh? And look, I know that this is a tactic done by a lot of brands. In fact, I bought a beard trimmer from Manscaped recently. At least I thought I bought a beard trimmer. What I ended up buying is a subscription for them to send me all these oils and things. I didn't even know I did, right? I didn't even know I did. It showed up and I was like, I didn't order this. Unbeknownst to me, I had signed up for some subscription and I had to go through the hassle of contacting them and canceling. Now, it was easy to cancel, but I don't know. You got to pry my Prime membership from my cold dead hands. I need it. I want all these things, right? I just thought that all of the things, and I said this on my Twitter feed at JASBOYC, I said, of all the things the FTC could sue Amazon for, really? This?
Yeah, there are probably a few other things that might be a little more noteworthy that would be protecting of consumers, but it is interesting. Honestly, Jason, I think the biggest miss that Amazon's had is not sending an email to customers saying, we've renewed your Prime membership for this amount. And honestly, my mother-in-law contacted me and said, hey, I had this $120 charge on my Amazon. I can't find the product that I ordered. Do a little digging. It was the Prime renewal. And Amazon just didn't tell them that's what it was. Great. But I agree. I imagine there's very few people who are actively out there trying to cancel. I've never had it, be a difficult experience. We've never wanted to cancel. But I agree. It's probably a little more hype than it needs to be. If Amazon is hurting consumers in any way, it's not in getting people to be able to sign up for a Prime membership and not, be able to cancel. I just haven't seen that in my own personal experience. So yeah, that would be news to me.
My guess is this will settle fast for a number that's like 1 minute of Amazon's profit dollars. They'll pay the FTC. They'll change their procedures. It'll be better for consumers in the long run. But I just thought, really, FTC? Okay, last one, Shannon. Now, this is also sort of anticlimactic because we've known what the Prime Day dates are going to be since back in April, because you have to start landing inventory long before Amazon even announces when the Prime Day holiday is going to be. But the Prime Day shopping event, I should say, not holiday, has been announced. It is July 11th and 12th. There it is. We've got it. We know now what it's going to be. Our recommendation as we were taking this to all of our clients. In fact, what we're going to do, Shannon, we're going to bring Liz on. Liz really cracked the code in terms of maximizing Prime Day for what it should be used from a seller's perspective, which is to gain rank. And we're going to lay out that plan in a future episode with her before the October Prime Day. I know they're not calling it Prime Day, whatever the heck they call it in October. We'll lay it out long before then. I don't want to tell this to people and then have them email us and say, Jason, you should have told me that 2 months ago. So we'll do that. Okay.
Yeah. It's interesting. I would just also say, we usually find out about deals. Sometimes in the advertising console where it says, okay, you've got to go ahead and book your spot for this deal this many months ahead of time, or sometimes if people have advanced partner status, they'll be able to get access to that information. But, a request from Amazon for those of us who do quarterly and yearly planning, a little more than a 3 weeks heads up would be appreciated to be able to plan for some of these bigger holiday events. So I'll just put that out there. I think it was announced, yesterday, today, and
I second
this episode a week later.
And like, hey, Amazon, you're not fooling anybody. Everybody knows what the dates are anyway. Just come out with it long before you require inventory to be in place to be ready for Prime Day, please.
Yeah, look, brands and sellers, again, if we're acting as true partners, they need to be able to plan inventory and cash for advertising. So let's work on a 3-month schedule instead of a 3 weeks. I think that would be really helpful. I know everybody would appreciate it. I know everybody on our team would as well.
Yeah. Well, look, Shannon, anything else before I take us out?
The last comment that I had just goes back to what we were talking about, social media. There's just 3 key pieces in that process. There's the exposure, there's the e-commerce transaction, and the fulfillment. And I think that Amazon has played, like I said, really well initially in the exposure from search. They do phenomenal in the transaction piece, and they've always done well with fulfillment. I think the fulfillment side is being threatened a little bit with some of this, SFP stuff, and potentially some of the competitors and what the government decides to do in terms of intervening. And they're also being threatened on the exposure side because I think the pay-to-play piece is making it more and more difficult for more companies to participate. And it'll be interesting to see what happens over the next 5 to 10 years. Does Amazon find their niche in just one instead of all 3 of those? Because they started with search. We're going to be the number 1 platform where people find products. We're going to be the number 1 e-commerce. And then they became the number 1 fulfillment. But I think that's going to change. And it'll be interesting to see how they maintain their e-commerce conversion piece as their primary element, and then partner with companies from the exposure side and the fulfillment side. I think that's what's going to happen. I could be wrong.
No, I like it, Shannon. I agree. Folks, in the final analysis, as usual, the rate of change and testing at Amazon is dizzying. We are going to leverage our company Slack channel called Seller News, and we're going to share that with you in coming episodes so we can keep you up to date. We'll share our thoughts and opinions as these news stories break. And if you like it, please leave us a good 5-star review and leave some comments and let us know if you want to hear more of this. Wow, it was hard to keep up. We'll probably do this again in a month, but thank you. Thanks for listening. Thanks for viewing us on our YouTube channel. And if you're ready to start growing and protecting your brand on Amazon with a team of experienced Amazon experts, you can visit us at day2podcast.com. That's day2podcast.com. And lastly, if you know of anyone else who would gain value from this podcast, please share it with them. Thank you for listening and happy selling.